working 12-hour days, training for a half marathon, meetings and events in between, and trying to get some good old-fashioned reading in to boot. Hi everyone, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Let's talk a little bit about the week ending September 22nd, 2024. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer, now also a booktuber. You can find my music in the Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Materials Season 3, and the official Brent Week's companion album for a series Lightbringer that came out last year. So I always like to do these weekly reading at roundups and kind of update you all on what I've been reading, kind of stuff that has been going on in my music life, plans for the channel and such. Because, a lot of these things are related. As I mentioned in kind of the intro of this video, I've worked a little bit on adaptations, and so it's my interest to kind of marry the different worlds together, kind of just keep you apprised on what's been going on in my life. And I always say, please leave it in the comments and let me know what you've been reading, because I've gotten some great recommendations from you all, and vice versa. I hope, I always like to try to pay that forward and try to recommend books to you that should be on your radar. So, it's always a give and take, and I love that about this community. And yeah, it's just an honor to be a part of it. So without further ado, please like and subscribe if you like this kind of video, and it helps the algorithm kind of find this and push it out to the relevant viewers and everything. So I'm really grateful for your support on that. But let's jump into the books. So I had mentioned, a couple weeks ago, I had started Stephen King's Dreamcatcher. And, I read the first fourth or maybe halfway mark in this book, and I was like, I don't get the gripes people have with this book. It's a fantastic coming-of-age story. It kind of delves into the psyches and also the friendships and their kind of past experiences of these four friends. I love that aspect of this book. Now, a couple weeks have passed since then, and I actually finished this book last night. And I have some thoughts. I think it is a very valid point of why people have gripes with this book. It was kind of famous last words. You say like, what could possibly go wrong? And then things start to go a little off the rails. So again, I'd mentioned this in a previous weekly update, but basically Stephen King was hopped up on a lot of pain meds at the time because he was recovering from an accident that nearly took his life. So, we were lucky at that point to get anything from him. And the fact that he was writing this in the hospital bed, quite amazing feat in itself. And there are parts of this book that are phenomenal. But kind of shortly after that update, around the halfway mark is when it fell apart for me. And fell apart pretty grandiosely, I think. There are a lot of weird fever dream sequences, and you almost feel like you are getting an insight into Stephen King's psyche at the time, because he's like going off on tangents and things like that. And the characters are also going off on tangents. Then he's doing asides that are like tangents. It was all over the place at one point, and I was like, what am I reading right now? I feel like when he does that in, say, The Dark Tower or something, there's still very character-driven things that are going on. So it even when it goes off the rails, it's a poetic and artful way that it's done. But in this book, it just really kind of went all over the place. So I gotta say, unfortunately, if I was to look back on this book, like if you were to divide this in half, and you took out all the kind of supernatural elements of this book, maybe not taking all of them out, but at least like crystallizing them into focused thoughts, maybe kind of lessening the alien invasion part of this book and kind of focus more on a coming of age story. It could have actually been one of his better books. But because of all that bloat, I would probably put this in the bottom quarter of Stephen King's books, which I hate to say that because you all know how much I love Stephen King and how much I just adore his works. And it's very rare when I find a book that doesn't land with me. I am also down for the ride when it comes to his more crazier ideas. And it's one thing I really like about the author. But in this one, it just didn't quite do it for me. I don't know that I would read it again. But, I don't know. The first half was so good. I would probably read that and stop there. So take that for, what you will. Take it with a larger grain of salt, I always say, because, I'm just one opinion. And I always like to spotlight these books so you could kind of try them for yourself and see what you think. Because, difference of opinion is kind of what makes the community so rich too. And I'd love to hear it in the comments if you disagree with this, by the way. Because I think it's fun to have, contrarian points of view. And and you will probably see something in the book that I didn't kind of see on first read. And I'm like, oh yeah, that it was a good aspect of the book, or vice versa, so always appreciate that. So that was the first book I completed. The second book I completed was a recommendation from Josh by Red Fury Books, who I'm linking down below. And he had mentioned, I was about to go on my Guy Gavriel Kay journey, didn't know where to start. And he had mentioned The Lions of al-Rassan. Sorry about the shininess, folks. This is, I got it from the library, so it's a little, it's got the protector on top. But what a book. I mean, it was phenomenal. I've never read anything quite like it, honestly. It is a historical fantasy by convention, but I would say it's more historical than fantasy. The fantasy parts of it were very, there was no real magic system that was like, it's diametrically opposite to like a Brandon Sanderson type magic system. And it was much more an emphasis on medieval Spain and kind of like Middle Eastern influences and things like that. Seeing that in a historical context alone, I knew nothing about that particular region in that particular time that this book was supposed to have taken place, kind of like an alternate universe version of that. And, I didn't feel out of place. I felt mesmerized. And GGK's prose is something else. Like, you feel like you are reading something that belongs in a museum, if there was like a book equivalent of that, like Library of Congress, but you know what I mean? Like, if there was a visual way of representing that in a museum, this is kind of like what you feel like when you're reading the prose, is you feel like you're in the presence of greatness. I thought the characters were so compelling, and this kind of slow burn, I wouldn't even call it a slow burn with a big climactic finish. It's more like a gradual unfolding. I felt the same way with reading Shogun by James Clavell earlier this year, where I felt like, it's kind of a smooth kind of transition all the way from beginning to end. One thing I will say that kept this from being a 5-star book for me, I would give this a solid 4 out of 5, is I felt the middle section dragged a little bit. And I felt like the ending was a little rushed. There was like a big kind of confrontation that this was kind of building to. Seeds were planted very subtly at the beginning and then kind of more so later on. And I love the way the confrontation itself was done. But between these two characters kind of being friends and then having to choose different sides and this kind of a thing, I'm keeping this all high level, by the way, so it's spoiler free, but still hopefully giving you something. But yeah, I felt like that whole transition was so fast that I was like, I wish you had spread that out a little bit more. Things like that kept it from being a 5-star. But in terms of the writing, in terms of how compelling it was, I'm so glad I read it. And I'll probably reread this in a few years because I still keep thinking about it. When I'm just doing other things, and so when a book does that, it means it's really stayed with you. And I feel very fortunate that I read this. So Josh, thank you so much, man, for introducing me to this book. And I really hope I can pay it forward with all of you who are watching this now, and hope you get a chance to experience GGK in all his glory. And I've heard this is one of his better books, so definitely check it out. Highly recommend. And I mentioned to you all that my good friend John from Disquiet and Dragons and I have been doing a John Gwynne buddy read. And we've been reading the first book in his Bloodsworn saga, The Shadow of the Gods. And we're going to be reading The Hunger of the Gods in October. And then in November, right when, a little bit after The Fury of the Gods, the third book in the trilogy, comes out, we're going to be reading that as well. So we've been enjoying the ride. I think it kind of slowed down for both of us on this one because, John was unfortunately sick. Buddy, I hope you feel better. And I hope you're back to 100% now. And myself, work has just been so crazy. And I was lucky to get these 2 books done this week in any case. But I've been loving it. I'm about 100 pages in now, so about quarter in, maybe a fifth or so, and I love the characters so far. It is definitely more slow burn in terms of how I feel about the characters in comparison to the Faithful and the Fallen, but I've heard this is, I would say his writing is elevated in this from, book 1 of this and comparing, say, Malice, which was book 1 of the Faithful and the Fallen series. I feel like the writing is a cut above in this, so I'm excited to see where this goes. Very exciting times ahead. So that was what I read this last week. So let's talk about kind of my reading roundup that will be taking place for the following week. So I want to definitely finish The Shadow of the Gods in time for September being over, because I'm going to get ready for some spooky season reads. That's what I want to read. And I also kind of low-key started Cibola Burn, book 4 of the Expanse series, on audio against my better judgment, because as you all probably know, I just don't do very well with audio when it comes to fiction. Nonfiction, perfect. Fiction is always a little bit tough for me to concentrate. And, you know, I found actually that this particular book has been easy to listen to somehow. I'm kind of really just invested right at the outset. So what I'm going to do for this one, so I can kind of stay on schedule and also be able to kind of listen on audio too, is I'll probably listen on audio. I have the book on Kindle, so I'll kind of switch back and forth. Maybe that might help, and I can kind of start easing into my audio journey. I don't know. Let me know if you have some tips on the audio too, because you know, I know of other people on this, you know, that have left comments saying, "Hey, I also struggle with audio," or people who are like only listen to audio. So I'd love to hear from you and kind of hear about better ways to do it if you have any rituals that work for you. So I greatly appreciate that. So I'm just kind of pulling up my list here. So let's talk a little bit about this past week on the channel. So a very important video was posted on Friday, and I've already gotten such wonderful responses from you. I'm linking it up here. I definitely would love it if you could check it out. Basically, it concerns the read-along plans for the channel in 2025. I've always wanted to do this, and I've seen this on other channels. I've taken part in other channels read-alongs and things, and it's been a blast. And creating a community, around this channel where we can read a book together or a series of books and talk about it, is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. So I picked 4 different series. And you can watch that video to check out which 4 I kind of picked as possibilities for 2025. We would start it all together on January 1st, and then kind of it would be like a year and a half read-along project. And my idea is, like with each book read, I'll try to schedule a special guest, either someone who's a veteran of that series who has better and deeper knowledge than I, so the community can benefit, or see if we could maybe even get the authors themselves. Who knows, you know? So I always say shoot for the moon when it comes to this kind of thing. So that's the plan. 3 of the series are fantasy, and they're kind of different pacings and different kind of amounts of books and things like that. And then one of them is like kind of more of a historical fiction series. And so I would love for you to know, I would love to know kind of what you all think about those. I have also put a community poll on my community post section with the 4 different options where you can vote. And 2 of the options are actually tied right now. So would love to know from more of you on what you think, would be your favorite option of what you would look forward to in a read along. And what I'm going to do is on October 31st, I'm going to announce the winner of that. That gives a couple months for people to get the books that they want in the format of their choice, or, get them from the library, or what have you, whatever works. I always say, like, accessibility is the main thing. It's not about having the most beautiful editions, although those are nice. It's about getting it in any way that's comfortable for you. So that gives a couple months for that as well. And then kind of for me to line up the guests. So that's kind of the format of that. So you can check out that video for more details on that. So let's talk a little bit about this coming week. I want to do 2 videos in addition to my weekly update. So the 2 videos I want to do is, I had mentioned this in my last weekly update. I have wanted to talk more about adaptations. So I've seen Daniel Green, Patrick Leo, do, kind of fantasy news and kind of talk about different special editions and things that are being created around in the fantasy community for various books and series. I wanted to kind of focus mine on just adaptation news because, as you know, I've written music on several adaptations and I pitch on adaptations all the time. So I'm kind of privy to information that's coming down the pipeline that hasn't been necessarily, maybe there's an article written about it, but we don't quite know where things are. And it's not like, what's it called? Like, NDA'd information, so I could speak freely on it. And, I kind of have my ear to the ground on what's being adapted sometimes. So I can kind of speak on that. And I thought that would be kind of a cool segment I could do once a month. So that's going to be coming out this week. The second video I want to do is my spooky season reads for October. So this is going to be kind of, not to ape Cliff from Cliff's Dark Gems, also linking him down below, by the way. Fantastic channel. I'm sure most of you have checked it out, but if you haven't, you got to check it out. He's a horror-based booktuber, and he always has this pile of possibilities. So I don't want to ape that name, but that's kind of the general sentiment of, kind of what I want to do. Is pick a bunch of books, and I'll try to get to as many as I can. At least horror is much shorter than some of these fantasy tomes, so it'll be a little bit easier to kind of get through more. So gonna talk a little bit about that, and I want to do like a soft read along. So The idea being, I'll try to talk about these in various weekly updates and things, but I would love, if you end up wanting to join along, maybe this might be the time for me to kind of soft launch the Discord channel. I was kind of thinking of doing that anyways in conjunction with this read along. So maybe I'll launch that and then we can all kind of talk about some of these books if you so choose. Feel free, no pressure, no obligation always, but if you feel compelled to jump on one of those, please feel free, because it's always fun to talk about the books and talk about it together. That's the best part of anything like this with this channel. So, and the last segment is always my music front segment. So just kind of keeping you apprised of what I've been working on, my projects and things like that. Sometimes they coincide with adaptations, sometimes they don't, but that's kind of just wanted to let you know, because I know some of you have been interested about that. So one thing I've been doing is I've been working on a commercial for Diwali, which is an Indian festival of lights holiday. So I've been writing some music, and it's going to be choreographed with a full dance production, and it's been really fun. A lot of work for that. So I've been working really hard on that this last week. I jumped on some additional music for a French TV show. So trying to practice my French as I score this thing, and worked on an episode last week. We'll be working on another one this week. So super excited about that. I'm so glad things are picking up, because man, it couldn't have come sooner. And then, I've been orchestrating on this TV show. It's like a nature docuseries. And that's been going gangbusters as well. I think we have one more episode to do, and then we're done with that. And then we'll see what's kind of on the horizon for the foreseeable future. I met with an agent, and, I've been kind of talking with agents and people like that. And I've noticed, that a lot of people are kind of hesitant to rep people at the moment because, and I'm noticing this across the board. I've talked to a lot of people who are kind of looking for agents and stuff. And they've all said that, it's tough to get repped right now because post strikes, like not enough work is going around. So everyone's hesitant to be the first one in the pool, so we'll see how that all flies. I'm really hoping, they say survive till 25 is kind of the long running theme in the entertainment biz right now. So people are just trying to make it to the next year. So let's see how it all pans out. And then the last thing is just a personal thing. I've just been training for this half marathon. So I went on a 6-mile run this morning on the beach in Santa Monica, where I live, with a composer friend of mine. So that was really nice. Kind of got the endorphins going. So this energy is powered by run and not caffeine today, which is kind of nice. So the natural high. But that's kind of my week. Let me know in the comments kind of how your week went, and like what did you read? Anything cool happened to you this week? And I love sharing this kind of stuff with you, and I love hearing from you all. So it's great getting to know you all in the comments. And I always like to make a dialogue and not just go like, hey, thanks for watching. I like to ask you questions too about yourself. So please feel free, don't be shy, and looking forward to seeing you all down there. Please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already and want to check out more videos. I would love to, keep seeing this, go out to the algorithm. Right now we have 452 subscribers, so really grateful to all of you who've joined this community over the last, not even 5 months I've been on Booktube. So looking forward to the next adventure with you all. But in the meantime, I'm Nick Hill with Shelf-Esteem. Please be good to yourself. Please be good to each other. And I'll see you very shortly with the next video. Take care.